by Bet Rivers, and we're talking about TCU's 63-58 home loss to the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas gets revenge. No shame for the Horned Frogs. Tough loss for them because they were in it. This was a battle. But guys, Grady Dick has been superb for this Kansas team. Every time I watch this guy play, Terrence, it's like you feel as though he's been with Kansas for 3 or 4 seasons because you forget that he's a freshman. He is the perfect Bill Self freshman. He really is.
Yeah. Plays within himself. Yeah, plays within himself, takes open shots. So you're saying he's sliding into Greg Paulus territory? To where like it feels like he's been there forever. Is that what you're saying?
It does. I mean, in one season, he's just fit in perfectly. And Self has now mastered this, right? Of being able to identify the guys that fit him from a freshman perspective, but he's also crushed it in the portal again. I mean, Kevin McCullough's just the perfect X Factor guy tonight. Goes for 15 points. He defends well. He
defends well. He was a Naismith
defensive
player of the year. He's one of the best defenders in the country.
He's got the best. He's got one of the best high school players and one of the best transfers.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jalen Wilson last season during their national title run was just waiting in the wings, ready to be the guy. And he got to see what it takes to be the guy to win a national championship. And this year, I mean, there's going to be nights where you don't have it, but you have to do the other things. He had 7 points tonight on 3 of 11 shooting. He ends up with 13 boards.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that says a lot about his development because there's a lot of times, younger players especially, that if they're not scoring the ball, they're like, shit, I can't help us. I can't help us. They're not doing anything. He ended up with 7 and 13 boards, 3 assists, and was okay with it and just kept doing all the other things. That shows a lot about their team. Grady Dick, it was his night early on, but it was a sloppy game for him. I said it before the break. The fact that Kansas can win both in the 80s, in the high 80s, possibly low 90s, they can also win in the low 60s, high 50s. That's what makes them most dangerous in the NCAA tournament, guys, because, you're not going to have it on a day rest sometimes on the second game of the weekend. The fact that they were able to pull it together after an emotional win, what was it, 2 days ago? That's big. That's really, really big.
Big. Kansas wins this game. They're now a team, folks. They've won 23 games. 14 of those wins have come over quadrant 1 opponents. It's why the selection committee put them as the number 1 seed. It's why, in my opinion, they should be over Purdue right now. If we're talking about who's worthy of being the number 1 seed, you could talk about Houston and Alabama, of course, who are more than deserving of it. But man, it's amazing to see a Kansas team here. Keep in mind, they're 23-5. At one point, they had lost 3 in a row in conference play. So outside of that pocket, and I'll tell you what, and I think, Terrence, you would have to agree here too, is you know what I was thinking as I was watching the top 16 reveal on Saturday? Like, man, they've got Tennessee as number 9 overall. And some people may have been like, wait a minute, is Tennessee really the top 3 seed in the top 16 reveal? Well, folks, Tennessee had just beaten the number 1 overall seed in Alabama. And Terrence Oglesby, you watched one of the few to actually beat Kansas, Tennessee, in the battle for Atlantis. How big that win was for the Volunteers at the time. And the follow-up I would have to you, T.O., is, okay, how does Kansas get beat?
Kansas got beat when they were struggling on the road. That 3-game losing streak earlier in the season, whether it was Kansas State and then TCU, that was a Saturday Monday game, I believe. No, excuse me, it wasn't. It was a Tuesday Saturday game. So I digress. It was Kansas State on the road. That game got them beat twice. And then they had to play TCU at home, which if you're pissed off about a loss, playing against TCU right then and there, that's tough because of how they play. And then Baylor was 2 days later. So like that kind of throws a loop in everything. If you're going to beat Kansas, one, you have to beat them up and make it ugly, or you have to be absolutely huge. Like, so look at their losses. Baylor at Baylor, guard play beat them that game. That happens on the road in the Big 12. Iowa State beat them up. Kansas State made them play their game. It was going up and down, but it was still a very physical game, especially in the last 4 minutes. Tennessee was massive. They closed everything up. And that was before, quite frankly, guys, Kansas really found their flow with how they were going to attack defenses when they keyed on Jalen Wilson. Now Kansas is different. They figured those things out. Now they've won 5 in a row. And ever since that 3-game losing streak, they needed a little time after losing to Baylor. And then they played Kentucky that Saturday. They needed a little time. The good thing about a losing streak sometimes, especially when you know you're in the tournament, you know you're a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, it expedites your learning curve as what's our problem right now.
Yeah.
What do we need to fix immediately? And that 3-game losing streak, I think it helped them just because it helped them figure out where we could get certain guys in better position. And ever since then, like, Kansas is a problem, guys. Like, they have lineup versatility. Ernest Uday came in 3 for 3 from the field. He was good. Like, he gave them another lob threat that KJ Adams, when he's there, it's great, but throwing another 5-man in there in the mix is big. So now I think they play their starters a lot of minutes, but they also have kind of found a balance between, hey, sometimes it's Jalen Wilson's night, sometimes it's Grady Dick's night, sometimes it's Kevin McCullough, and they're all okay with it. And that the fact that those 3 guys plus DeJuan Harris, they're tough, man. They're just tough.
Bill just seems to push the right buttons. I think early on when they was going through that stretch, I was critical of DeJuan Harris in the sense that he wasn't looking to score. Like I said he was self-checked. He was looking to score. Then he goes on a stretch where he starts going into double figures, and then he starts making you guard him. Now the floor is opening up. I think they're so dangerous because they don't have to depend on one guy. You know, like Jalen Wilson struggles tonight, no problem. Grady Dick steps up. Grady Dick struggles, it's another guy. It just seems to be they're defending, and then the offense, the ball finds whoever it finds, and whoever's going, shooting the well or scoring, they just get the ball. They just figure out a way, find the right guy, which is championship caliber teams do.
Kansas over the last 2 years now, folks, is 57-11.
Is that good?
Not sure. I mean, that's just insane. And they're doing it in the best conference in college basketball by a wide margin.